In this video, we're going to be talking about how young student athletes can get the edge in their competition, in their work, in their career, and even in the Olympics or an international stage. That's right, I'm filming this while the Tokyo 2020, now 2021 Olympics is going on. And I got to say, I am very impressed by the youth who are at this sport this year. There is a 13-year-old, I believe, who won the gold medal in the newest sport to be added, skateboarding, 13 years old. And I see all these other competitors in all these other sports that are 16, 17, 14. It is insane. We have people from all these different countries across the world. The youngest ever Olympian in table tennis recently, we had someone in canoeing who was 17 years old. Incredible displays and gifts at such an early age. So how do you maximize these and how do you gain that extra edge to beat your competitors? I know almost for sure that there are things that they are not maximizing out on that they could get that edge. How do I know this? Well, I've studied a lot of successful people over many years, and even in some of the most recent biographies I read, and I read many books, 3 or 4 every month, but I'm currently going through Total Recall by Arnold Schwarzenegger, an unbelievable autobiography. And one of my favorites, honestly, I've read a lot of biographies. This one is like electrifying. And even he admits that even after spending almost a decade in a sport, he realized, wow, neglected the mental side of my game. I performed at a very high level. I won Mr. Olympia many times. But in his biography, he says, man, I never considered the mental side. Here I was just working on my physical body. What about my mental body? And it was only when he was starting to transition to acting and he had all these opportunities going at the same time. He had acting classes, English classes, he had his side businesses going, bricklaying, and then he was trying to compete in Mr. Olympia one last time. And he was so overwhelmed by the options that he went to the hippies on the beach in California and a skinny guy that he knew very well who practiced transcendental meditation to really get his mind in a place where he wasn't overwhelmed and stressed by all these opportunities. So what are some things, what are like the top 3, top 5 things that athletes at any level, whether it's recreational or climbing to that international stage, can really leverage to really gain the most of their experience and perform at a high level? As I've alluded, I think the first thing is to start to master your mental game. When you study some of the greatest American football players of all time, in their off seasons, they're not just training their physical bodies. They are sharpening their mind. And there's many ways to sharpen your mind, one of which is to leverage all the material, all the tactical stuff. So a lot of these American football players at the highest levels, they will watch hours upon hours of footage of gameplay and dissect it and study the formations and strategies of it. Kobe Bryant did the same thing with Michael Jordan's footage. And that's how you gain an edge through your mind, not just through your physical abilities and motor skills. It's almost about pre-planning, strategizing, and half the battle is won then. So that's one way, practicing through the strategy, the experimentation, the theory. But a second way, as I've also alluded to, is enhancing the just general ability, cognitive ability of your mind. Meditation, whether transcendental or mindfulness or just basic breath meditation, has shown a lot of empirical evidence to improve performance. But that's just one way of doing it. I actually just did a whole video on Tom Brady's book, The TB12 Method. And guess what he recommends in his book? An app called Brain HQ. And essentially, I think he made some type of partnership with the app. But I've been using this myself, and there's a free version, and you get one free brain exercise a day. And almost after just like using it for 1 week, I was like, I can see why Tom Brady would benefit from this. Because you get like, every day you get a random exercise and they have like 50 different categories, but some of them are focused on pattern recognition. There's like all these black dots and then three of them flash white, and then they're moving around, and then three of them flash white again. Then you have to identify where the white dots went. You could imagine how that could be helpful on a football field when everyone's moving and you have to pass the ball in a split second. So that's just one of many exercises there. There's memory exercises, name exercises, shape exercises. And so that's one way of strengthening your mind, not just your body on the field. And of course, you can practice that on the field, but there are ways where, especially when your body's recovering or just drained, where you can continue to practice your mind, and that's how people get ahead. Now, the third way is through your energy and motivation levels. This is probably maybe the most important way, and this is something that I touched on another video I did recently called The Winner's Mindset. And in that video, I showed you a book, and it was the book called The Power of Full Engagement. It's a very famous book in certain circles, but I think it's kind of lost its recognition as it's gotten older. But there's a tons of basically success stories and testimonials from not just all-time great CEOs, but also Olympians, gold medalists, crediting the book for taking them to the next level to succeed. And the core thesis of the book really just covers I believe it's 5 different energy levels: physical, mental, spiritual, emotional, and I think the last one's psychological. But usually when you come into the book, even if you're performing at a very high level, some of those energies are out of balance. Some of those things are not as good as you want it to be. And the book really goes into more detail. Like, let's say you don't want to be religious. Well, you can still be spiritual without being religious. The book covers that. Spiritual to them really just means really having a strong why behind why you do this, a purpose, a calling, a meaning to your work, not just work for work's sake or for a paycheck. And so those types of things, and just being aware of them and forming an action plan, which the book does, will help level up those levels. And bada bing, bada boom, you are performing at a higher level during your daily practice as well as when it's time for competition. Number 4, the fourth thing is to really have the right mindsets. Mindsets are something a lot of athletes talk about. Mindsets and perspectives or experiences can really get you very far. I'm a big fan of the CrossFit competitive scene, and guess what? A lot of the all-time greats, people who have won first place numerous years in a row, they got that motivation because they had certain mindsets, beliefs about what their work meant. And they also took bad experiences, them winning second place, when they tripped and fell and kind of lost that edge and got second place. They took those in a positive way and gave them the motivation for it to never happen again. There's tons of different mindsets you can adopt, but some good ones are hard work pays off. Another one is every rep I make takes me one step closer to being a champion. That was Arnold's mindset. And so when you have these mindsets, you have a different perspective even though you're doing the same job. There's that old analogy of like 3 people basically doing the same work, chopping stones, doing granite work. One says that this is just a job. One says this is a career. And then the final one says this is a calling. We're building something amazing for centuries of people afterwards. So although they're doing the same work, based off the different perspectives, they channel different energies and behaviors to that work. And then I guess the 5th and final thing I want to say around athletic performance and peak performance is you really got to start studying and learning from the masters. There's so many books out there published by world champions in your field. There's courses by those people as well. Steph Curry, Serena Williams, Gary Kasparov, chess, basketball, tennis, they all have courses on masterclass.com. So if you want a course rather than a book, there you go. I actually have an affiliate link to Masterclass if you want to use it. I get a small commission at no cost to you if you go through my link and purchase. It's willyoulaugh.com/masterclass. But anyhow, even if you don't prefer courses, books, there's so many books. You would be surprised how many books out there. If there's a sport, if there's a person you follow, do your research, because chances are you'd be surprised. They've written a book about their experiences and their skill sets. Half the time I'm surprised they have. I'm like, really? They have too? And you get so much knowledge. Just the other day, I did that again, and I was getting into UFC. Guess what? Khabib Nurmagomedov. I can't pronounce his last name. One of the all-time great UFC fighters that I was really starting to enjoy watching. Turns out he wrote a book. So all these people have all this knowledge out there, and most athletes, not even the general public, but athletes, they do not take the time to absorb that knowledge, because they've got decades of experience above you. And that's another form of mentorship that you can get, to supplicate the more obvious forms where you pay that person to personally mentor you. Sometimes you can't get that access yet, so you can supplement it with decades of information from all these different sources, and then you learn what works, what doesn't, and you shortcut your way to success. I mean, I took some of Gary's course, not because I wanted to be a great chess master, but I thought maybe I could use this in other areas of life. And he really kind of illuminated chess and just critical thinking in ways that I never would have considered, thus shaving some time off of my own thing. And for example, in chess, he says, there's no best strategy. It's not like everyone needs to be an aggressive player. Some are passive, some are aggressive. You have to find what works best for your personality style. And that can definitely change your gameplay if beforehand you're assuming, oh, I have to follow an aggressive stance because that's the best way. Similarly, a lot of athletes talk about visualization, visualizing them winning that gold, but also performing that action, whether that's an Olympic lift or a sprint, before it actually happens. It really sinks their mood, sinks their ability, and increases the chances they perform it as they visualized. So visualization practices, those are things that you only pick up through that study of successful athletes, and unfortunately I don't think people do enough of that. A lot of athletes, even at the state or national level, they're doing a lot, but are they spending the time to go through biography after biography, uncovering centuries, sometimes decades of knowledge? I mean, if you look at the top players, the best in the world, they are oftentimes 10 times ahead of second place because they're doing that work. I know for a fact that a lot of the top chess players, they've read all the chess books on all the different tactics and practices that all the greats before them have published. And so even then, you have to expand beyond that. Don't just stick with chess if you're a chess player. Once you finish all those books, how can you expand to people you admire or even sports you've never heard of and learn about certain mindsets of mental grit and mental toughness that you can adopt for your own life? There's plenty of stuff to cover. I also like Brendon Burchard's book, High Performance Habits. But I think a great way of just starting is to start to check out some of those books of people you admire. Tiger Woods has written books. You can read books about Michael Jordan. And don't always just follow those high-level famous people. Maybe find someone who's the all-time greatest cricket player or archery shooter. You could probably learn a lot from there if that sport relates enough to things that happen in your sport. So that's what I want to say about the topic. Hopefully you got some value out of this. And let me know if you want further details. I could talk about this for a lot longer, but that's how you can get ahead as an athlete. Enjoy the Olympics. Like, subscribe, and comment. And leave a comment letting me know if you have any tips from your own experience from seeing other athletes perform well that you want to share with our community. We want to help each other, share our experiences, build a community so we can support each other and help each other grow. Thanks for watching. See you in my next YouTube video.